today on an all-new Dr. Phil. Latino hate crimes went up 700%.
The stigma, it's sickening.
It's my property. I'll get off. You and your illegals.
She's banging on the door with a hammer.
She traumatized my whole family.
What makes this a hate crime?
She said my family, they don't belong in American property.
I'm coming back. You wait and see.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today is going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
Get ready to take care of you. How you doing? How you doing? You know, it's time to turn the focus on another disturbing problem that is surprisingly rarely talked about. According to the FBI, hate crimes targeting Latinos, including assault, robberies, and other crimes, rose by 21% in 2018, and in 2019 increased again by nearly 9%. Just in New York City alone, Latino hate crimes went up 700% from 20 to 21. What the hell is that all about? The rise in hate crimes has coincided with a rise in anti-immigrant sentiment in America. Take a look.
Come on, let's get your
We got tacos, baby! Burrito!
Random attacks on Southern California street vendors while they work.
You see people being spit on. You see people getting attacked.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Mr. Clifton Blackwell, guilty of first-degree reckless injury.
Conviction today in the trial of a Milwaukee man who splashed an acidic drain cleaner on a Latino man during an argument over a parking space.
I'm not giving my money to some illegal immigrant. I don't care. You gotta have some. You're in America. You're supposed to learn English.
Now, I've said this in the past, and I'll say it again. I want you to imagine that despite knowing that you're a good person who has hopes and dreams like any other person, that there is a segment of the population that actually professes to hate you. And they act on that because of misinformation they've heard from news, media, politicians, or friends. Now, we're going to meet a nice couple, Fatima and her husband, Robert, who claimed they were tormented by a stranger who rang their doorbell and would not stop for an entire year.
The neighborhood where my family lives in, it's a peaceful area until recently.
It's my property. I've been away and I'm back now, babe. Now get off. You and your illegals.
January 2022, it was the first time Judy showed up. My dad and my 4-year-old sister were in the house.
You don't have enough American dollars to buy this property, babe?
My husband and I, we were all at work.
When Fatima showed me the video, I made my way to the house.
I'm gonna your husband die.
When I got to the house, my father-in-law looked shocked. The police arrested Judy, and she was on a 72-hour hold.
2 months after the first incident, Judy came back. She literally opened the mailbox, took something, put it in her purse, and walked away. And that's when we saw her at the bus stop. We spoke to her, and I told her to leave my family alone. When the last incident happened, she tried to use the pin pad to get into the front door. Every time that Judy came to my parents' house, we called the police. I posted the videos online. I believe law enforcement only started to take my family situation seriously when the videos went viral. I do believe that because we're Latinos, they're not taking it as serious as it should have been. It traumatized all of us. I believe 100% as soon as Judy has the opportunity that she will come back.
I'm coming back. You wait and see.
Well, it's hard to find words to describe that kind of harassment. Fatima, that's difficult, obviously, for you to watch. What do you What do you think and feel when you see that?
She traumatized my whole family. For somebody to just come and think that it's okay to be racist and try to hurt them, it's not right at all.
Robert, she's banging on the door with a hammer.
Yeah, it was a scary situation.
The first time it happened in January 2022, my dad and my little sister were in the living room, and she sees Judy coming into the house. The alarm went off that the door was open from the basement and that she had broken the window. So he opened the basement door, and that's when he started hearing like the dryer breaking and everything. And she was like maybe 5 steps away from him, where she had her hand up with the hammer.
Here's a video of Fatima's family's a home security camera that shows the woman at their front door first. Let's take a look at this.
You don't have enough American dollars to buy this property, babe? It's mine. It's my property. I've been away and I'm back now, babe. Now get off. You and your illegals. American citizen who built this house. I'm coming back. You wait and see.
This was after she had broken.
This after she did that first, then came around.
She broke into the house and then made her way to the front door and started doing
hitting
all of
the
that.
hammer, breaking the Ring camera.
What do you recall? What do you allege that she said that makes this a hate crime?
She said that my family is a bunch of illegals, that they don't belong in American property, that
How did they get the property? They probably got it from illegal documents.
What do you say to yourself about that?
what she did, like I said, is not right. She feels like I guess she's privileged and that she can get away with anything that she did to my family. And every time I see or hear about what had happened, it takes me back to when it happened, and it breaks my heart to see that there's so much hate in people just because of our race and color.
Well, we've got to talk about this. Fatima and Robert believe that their complaints were not taken seriously by law enforcement, certainly not as much as they would have been if they hadn't been Latino. We'll talk about that when we come back.
There's a huge stigma that we're facing every day. For street vendors, attacks on them have risen over 300%.
Who's doing this?
Why didn't you leave? Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Leave.
Why?
Get out of here. This is illegal.
Why? ¿Por qué no pegas? Take it easy.
I'm gonna yell.
Take it easy.
No.
Take it easy, sir.
No. This
Take
is wrong.
it easy.
This is illegal. You are criminal.
Yeah, why?
Yeah. I'm gonna break your car. You got it.
Yeah.
Hey, sir, take it easy.
This happened this Monday in Riverside, California. The person trying to impede the street vendor from walking eventually hits his cart with his car, almost running over the street vendor. Shame on you.
Well, today we're confronting a topic not often discussed, the rise of Latino hate crimes through the eyes of some of the victims, such as Fatima and her husband, Robert. Now, the presidential election is coming up next year, and my next guest says many Latinos fear the same divisive rhetoric that plagued the 2016 and 2020 elections. Now, Eden Enamorado has been a civil rights activist for 13 years and is currently advocating on behalf of the Latino street vendors you just saw, who he claims are being attacked at an alarming rate. Now, before I even say a word to you, let me ask you guys as a group, are you surprised to see what you're seeing here? If you are, raise your hand really high. So you're not cognizant of this happening on an everyday basis, because it is happening on an everyday basis. It's happening in LA, it's happening in New York, and it's happening in a lot of places in between. There are some places it's more than others, but I don't think any place is immune. Now, Eden, what's the stigma that Latinos are facing here?
There's a huge stigma that we're facing every day, and obviously the numbers don't lie that in the past 10 years it's risen, especially in the past 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
And right now it's been overwhelming. In the past 10 years, for example, for street vendors, attacks on them have risen over 300%. We just came back from Nevada this weekend. There was a man there who was beaten while he was on the floor. He's 76 years old. He was being told that he's not from America. The stigma against our culture, it's sickening. It's sad.
Well, who's doing the actual, like we've seen, and I've seen 50 more videos of these street vendors, and I've seen so many of them because a lot of them are posted in a braggadocious way. I mean, the perpetrators or bystanders who do nothing about it, but what does the research tell you? Who's doing this?
It's very diverse, and the news has a lot to blame as well because there's a lot of folks, even our own culture, telling us to go back to our country. We're getting hit from all sides, and that's what's pretty much happening. Because when I see people attacking our culture, whether it's African American, whether it's white, whether it's Mexicans who consider themselves Americans now and forget where they come from, it's definitely, they're all spewing the same rhetoric.
And this woman, she's saying, this is my house. And I understand from looking into this that a prior owner of the house has the same last name as her. Was this her family's home at some time in the past? Have you all been able to determine that?
I was told that I'm not sure if she lived there or a family member lived there, but that was like 30 years ago. And in my understanding, before my family moved in there, because we've lived there for like 7 years this year, before us, there was another white family that used to live there, not related to the woman. And she never went and harassed them in any way until my Latino family moves in. Then there's all of this going on.
And you claim law enforcement did not take your pleas for help seriously. And what happened when you asked for a restraining order?
They said that they couldn't file the restraining order for her mom and dad because they couldn't find an address of Judy. They didn't know where she lived, so they couldn't serve her.
It was just like a lot of times that, like, the first time should have been serious. Like, she broke into the house with a weapon and could have had the opportunity to hurt my dad or my little sister that was 4 years old at that time. She could have had a gun, she could have had a knife, she could have had something more. So I called the cops, and all the times that it happened, and the first time I immediately tried to get a restraining order from my parents, but we were denied because we don't have an address. And it made me upset because I don't know this woman at all. I'm just trying to keep her away.
We're going to meet a 20-year veteran of the LAPD who says hate incidences are not criminal acts, even if they're motivated by bias. We'll talk about that when we come back. She's banging on the door with a hammer and calling them blankety-blank immigrants. Does the coupling of those two things together rise to the level of becoming a hate crime?
You're out of business. You want to have Spanish on your TV?
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is you're not American, dude. I'm not giving my money to some illegal immigrant. You're in America. You're supposed to learn English. You got Spanish. Well, then you got Spanish on your TV. That's to Americans, dude. Like, you don't understand. You're an ignoramus. She's videotaping me.
Yeah, because you're racist. You're racist. Yes, you are.
You're a victim.
You're racist.
You're a victim.
I'm not a victim.
You're a victim.
I'm not.
No, I'm an American.
No, you're a racist.
Victim. I can do this with my phone too, and I got 4,000 followers. I'm at Amy's, and I am being bullied by these people.
Bullied?
Yeah. They're calling me a racist because I am white.
We're back talking about the fight against Latino hate in America. Now, in the video you just saw, a customer reportedly told an employee at Amy's Pizzeria, an Italian restaurant in the Philadelphia suburb, "Give me my money back. I'm not giving my money to some illegal immigrant." Now, in a caption on the viral video, Amy's Pizza claims, "This lady walked into our pizza shop, owned by Hispanics, and heard Spanish coming from our TV and started discriminating against us. Not all Spanish speakers are Mexican, and it was bold of her to assume, so discrimination should not happen to anyone, no matter who they are, nor what their background is. America is a country built by immigrants." The Hatboro Police Department are receiving a video of the incident, and the investigation is ongoing. Now, names of those involved are not being released at this time. And joining the conversation now is Cheryl Dorsey, a former LAPD sergeant and 20-year veteran. And thanks for being here again.
Thanks for having me.
Are hate crimes not taken seriously by the police, or are they reluctant to follow up? What do you think is happening here when they feel like they're not getting the reaction, not getting the support that you would think they would get?
There was evidence of criminal activity, vandalism, trespass for sure. And so why they didn't get the service that they deserved is unknown to me. Certainly it's problematic. And so I encourage anyone, when you call the police for whatever reason, if you don't get the service that you think you are deserving, to first ask for a supervisor, a sergeant, someone like me. And one thing I can tell you the police departments don't like is a paper trail. I encourage everybody to write a letter, and I say write it to Lottie Dottie and everybody. Write it to the captain of that division, the police chief here in Los Angeles, every member of the police commission, and just delineate all of the things that were going on and what you thought should have occurred, and someone will get back to you, and hopefully you will get the kind of response that you want.
You shouldn't have to do that, but the point is there is a way to do that.
Correct.
If you're not getting what you want. Now, when you talk about the difference between breaking and entering, trespassing, vandalism, assault, or whatever, and a hate crime, it has to do with the determination of the motivation, correct?
Well, first of all, it has to be criminal, right? And so you can have something that doesn't rise to the level of criminality, but it certainly is hateful, right? It could be insults being slurred, thrown at you, but not a crime. Like this lady at the door, you know, talking through the ring and saying things that are just nonsensical, not a crime to do that, but certainly it's hateful. And it seems to be motivated by the fact that this family who's living in this home is Hispanic, and so that's a problem. While it's not a crime, you can certainly ask the police to create an incident report because, again, a paper trail, you want to show that these things are happening over and over. So in the event you do find out who she is, you are able to get into court. Now you can go in and tell a judge on these days and at this time, this is what occurred.
Okay, so she's banging on the door with a hammer. And if she couples that with calling them blankety blank immigrants, does the coupling of those two things together rise to the level of becoming a hate crime, or there has to be something else that's missing?
I think if you can couple it with maybe damage to the door, no matter how minor, now you have vandalism. You have her on our property against our will. That's trespass, and then everything else that goes along with it. You have to articulate certain verbiage in order to get the response that you need. You shouldn't have to, but it seems like that's what this family needs to do.
Is this rampant across the United States where the police are slow to respond if it's a Latino complainant?
Definitely, definitely. There's situations where people call the cops and they get ticketed. For example, there's street vendors who call the cops for help and they get ticketed. It's not being taken serious. It's so hard to prove that it was a hate crime. Even now, with her saying that, you know, you are illegal, she's assuming that they're undocumented. She's discriminated against their ethnicity, and it's definitely a hate crime. And across the nation, it's showing, you know, police are only solving 2% of major crimes, and it seems like they don't want to follow up. It seems they don't want to have the paperwork. And that's why there's mistrust between police and our communities.
We're going to take a break, and a couple of things coming. First, we're going to meet a former extremist who claims he is risking his life by speaking out against the hateful group he was once a part of. And before we're done today, I'm going to unpack the psychological pathology of what makes haters like this hate. This propaganda that you put out hurt people like Fatima and Robert, fan the flames to get people incited to violence. Did you feel any conflict, or were you down with that? Closed captioning provided by
Mary Paul.
A man from Colorado answers questions about the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Jason Van Tatenhove was once a spokesman for the extreme right militia group, the Oath Keepers.
The testimony you're about to give is the truth.
A journalist and artist, Jason Van Tatenhove was now a key witness before a congressional committee.
But the Oath Keepers are a dangerous militia that is in large part fed by the ego and drive of Stuart Rhodes.
Well, he is commander-in-chief. We're going to have to do it ourselves later in a much more desperate, much more bloody war.
We're back talking about the increase in violence against Latinos, which many of my guests today say is often overlooked or underresponded to. Now, you just saw my next guest, Jason Tatenhove, a former Oath Keeper. He was their spokesman, testified before a Senate committee in July 2022 about the group's increasingly radical positions, including negative rhetoric about Latinos. Now, Jason says he is now a former extremist after being in a group for 1.5 years. He also says he has been receiving a lot of hate after recently publishing a book about his experience titled The Perils of Extremism: How I Left Oath Keepers and Why We Should Be Concerned About a Future Civil War.
My name is Jason. I was employed by the Oath Keepers. The Oath Keepers are the most prominent militia of our day. A lot of the members come from a rural area. They largely feel like they haven't been listened to by the political power base. If people are feeling disenfranchised, they are prime targets for radicalization. The Oath Keepers would take advantage of situations like that. I self-describe myself as a propagandist during that period of time. So I became their national media director. That journey began during the Bundy Ranch standoff.
Protesters flooded this federal holding pen area aiming to release Cliven Bundy's cattle.
Pushing back up off the gate for right now.
Part of my job duty was to create propaganda. We would go find those outrage political issues, and then we would write our own articles based on what was getting the most angry reaction. When I was at the Oath Keepers, one of the boogeymen that the Oath Keepers would target were undocumented immigrants coming up from the southern border. This is a group that has been targeted multiple times. I was associated with the Oath Keepers for about 1.5 years. My time with the Oath Keepers ended at the end of 2016. What it was that made me shake myself awake, I walked into a conversation with a core member that really was the last straw. They were denying that the Holocaust had ever happened. That was it. I knew then that we had to walk away. I just had to leave.
Okay, well, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You said you finally heard some things that were so outrageous and offensive to your sensibilities that you thought, I can't align myself with this.
I was done with that period of my life at about that time. There was a progression that was happening. You know, it kind of started with a healthy distrust of the government. And you start with these innocuous places. You know, I think a lot of Americans can get behind a healthy distrust of the government. But over time, the rhetoric that's used and the words that are used and the stories that are told become more extreme. They become more radicalized.
You said you would find these things that would create outrage, like illegal immigrants, as you referred to them in the propaganda and the writings, surging up from the border. You felt those sentiments, and you were writing about those sentiments, right?
Yeah.
What caused you to feel those sentiments?
Well, I think it has to do with, being in a place of poverty myself. And when you are in a vulnerable position, these types of propagandas can have an effect. It really does. And, coming from, a home life that is not necessarily ideal, these are all vulnerabilities that make people more apt to latch on to extremism.
Did you feel any conflict at all on your part when you claim the group targeted Latinos some? When that was happening, did you feel any conflict, or were you down with that?
You had to wait until you felt it was happening to you to show empathy.
Cheryl, you're saying that most of what he's talking about is not a crime. Closed captioning provided by Did you feel any conflict at all on your part when you claim the group targeted Latinos some? When that was happening, did you feel any conflict, or were you down with that for a period in your
no,
life?
I definitely felt conflict with several things. You know, there was targeting of the LGBTQ plus community. There was targeting of Latinos. My granddaughter's Latino. I'm not a straight man, so you know these were conflicts that were there. But you know, in private conversations with Stuart Rhodes and stuff, he would have a different messaging. And for a long time, he tried to very much paint a picture that there wasn't a racist element. You know, it was just going up against the federal government. But that all crept in, and that all changed, and that all evolved, and you know that really began a much harder right turn.
But this propaganda that you put out, a lot of it that you authored, hurt people like Fatima and Robert, hurt people like these street vendors, fan the flames to get people incited to violence.
It certainly played a role, and I need to take responsibility for that, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to testify before Congress, and the work I'm doing now with speaking with nonprofits all across the country. But I have to take responsibility for that. I've got to own that, because you're right. I did play a part of it. And when I watched what was happening on January 6th, it was a gut punch to me.
I just find it frustrating that you had to wait until you felt it was happening to you when someone was trying to delete Jewish history with the Holocaust, because that's what's happening right now with Proud Boys and all these extremely right groups. They are deleting our history with Native genocide across the whole continent. And it's sickening that sometimes you have to wait until it happens to you to show empathy.
And Cheryl, you're saying that most of what he's talking about is not a crime.
Well, no, it's not. And it's interesting that he, says this, and I appreciate your candor. I appreciate you. He's not alone. And there are lots of folks like him who are on those 18,000 police departments who get those calls to help this gentleman, to help this family, and who do nothing because they have that same mindset. They haven't had that come to Jesus meeting yet that he has had. We know that KKK and white supremacists have infiltrated, according to the FBI, police departments. And so it's easy to understand how you jump from then police officers responding to do a thing. They took an oath to protect and to serve, and then they show up and they kind of just foo-foo away your complaint, or they do everything but provide you with the service that you're so deserving of, and that needs to be dealt with.
I would like to know how you think what happened to Fatima is not a hate crime.
I didn't say that it's not a hate crime. Mm-hmm. I just said that what I think about their situation is, first of all, I think that maybe they didn't articulate to the officers who responded the right verbiage to get the kind of response that they should have got. I didn't say that it wasn't. I see her at the door with a hammer. These are good people. Mm-hmm. They're peaceful people. And that's what bullies tend to go after. They go after people who they know won't come for them. I promise you, she'd have come to my door once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to meet. I ain't coming to your door ever. We're going to meet a woman who decided to conduct an experiment by bringing two opposing groups, Latino immigrants and Trumpers with anti-immigrant sentiments, together. We'll see what happened. That's next.
What are you guys struggling with right now?
Honestly, me coming on this show, you got to think twice, because what could be the backlash of me coming out and saying I support Trump?
That's the problem. People feel perfect dummies. Let's talk a little bit about Donald Trump.
They're asking what they think of Donald Trump.
Oh, this is going to be good.
In 2020, among Latino subgroups, Mexicans ranked as the largest at 61.6%. So why is there rising hate against the Latino community, which makes up a growing portion of the U.S. population? Well, my next guest, Elizabeth Jarosz, is a market research expert and moderator who set up a social experiment to find out the answer in the transformational series Behind the Glass.
I've been watching the media like you all have, and we are at odds. We're at odds in so many issues. So I want to try an experiment. Today we brought together two groups with very different opinions. I'm going to put Trump supporters in the front room of a focus group facility. Are you guys okay with people coming in illegally?
No, absolutely not.
In the back room, behind a one-way mirror, there are going to be recent immigrants watching. Then we're going to flip it. All right. What are you guys struggling with right now?
You know, honestly, me coming on this show or this focus group, I had to think twice because what could be the backlash of me coming out and saying I support Trump?
I feel the same way.
Really?
That's the problem. I feel perfect.
Let's talk a little bit about a certain political candidate, Donald Trump.
They're asking what they think of Donald Trump.
Oh, this is going to be good.
What's the most sort of disturbing thing?
Aggression.
At the beginning of his campaign, we had people beating other people up because of their immigration status.
Just confusing media instigation.
No, they weren't asking her that. Why she was burning the flag and stepping on the American flag.
All right. You're passionate about immigration. Why?
There has to be some sort of contribution. You know,
it's going to be hard
you just can't come here and just because you're having a rough time somewhere else.
I am undocumented. My whole family has been in an immigration process for 15 years.
I'm a former veteran, and say you were granted citizenship, and today we were at war. Would you serve your country?
Yes, I would be willing to do that.
And your reason for joining it would be?
To protect the country that I was raised in. I have been here for 23 of the 24 years that I've been alive.
What do you guys think needs to happen in order to lift the barrier between the two sides of this issue?
I think some of you alluded to being afraid for your physical safety, and you were a little bit reluctant to say that you're willing to support Trump.
It's not just fear, it's people not including you in a conversation or looking at you differently.
This is basically our everyday struggle. We have to live in a system that treats us as second-class citizens.
It's the same as how...
You said it's the same what? What were you saying, Renee?
You feel that we feel against immigrants.
So basically what you're saying is that you're both living in a similar kind of...
Yeah, I agree that I think we're all living in fear because there is no distinction between sides.
I'd like to hear your side.
I would like to make a request.
Yeah, I would like to hear that too.
Would you guys be okay if we allowed them to make a request?
Sure.
I think it would be fair.
When you talk about immigration, I feel you need to pay more attention to what's going on.
So can I coach you just a little bit?
Yes.
Focus too much. You need to, it's harder to hear that from the other side. So if you focus just on, I feel this,
I feel frustrated because I've heard you speak about, values that you care about, such as justice, democracy, equality, and I care about the same things.
Give them a specific request.
I would love for you to take more time to understand the broken immigration system and understand what is it that is driving them to come over to the United States.
What did you guys hear him say?
Understand why people are coming here, but that's not going to solve the problem.
But we're not solving the problem.
Okay.
He just made one simple request. What was his request?
He says he wants us to understand why people are coming to this country. And I was an immigrant. We don't understand that. Like, it's for a better life. We understand there's more opportunities.
Okay, well, let's not defend it. We're hearing what he said. So he wants
for us to understand.
For understanding, you want us to understand your situation and your purpose, why you're coming to America.
Is that what you're requesting?
Yeah.
Okay. And so are you guys willing to take an action to better understand?
Absolutely.
How do you feel about that?
I think that's good because we're finding common ground.
I'm grateful that y'all were able to open up.
I'm grateful for having met you. I think that that's what America is all about, is the diversity of all the different cultures, and we're still one people, no matter what. So,
we basically lived what America is about today.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, you say there was a moment where you thought you were going to have to get armed security in there because of the tension. What was the melting point?
Well, it was actually before. I'm a market researcher. I've been doing focus groups for 23 years, and I used one of the facilities that I've been using for many years. And we booked the facility, and they found out they didn't find out. I told them what we were doing, but when they really understood that I was bringing these two polarized sides together, they tried to cancel the project. But really I know from the 23 years I've been doing this that, when I interview people around the world, we're really more alike than we are different. There's a handful of human values. And my thought was, could I use some of the same tools and techniques I use in market research to help heal the most divisive issues of our time, to help heal the divide? And I just wondered if I separated people behind the glass, if they would see themselves in each other, if they would find themselves in each other. And then so we did that, and I let one side listen, and then I flipped it and let the other side listen, and brought them together, and then I facilitated a dialogue, and they came together, and they saw themselves in each other.
I always say when I talk to people about how to negotiate is you got to listen to what the other side is needing and recognize you don't always have the same currency. You may value something here that they value here, and it's easy for them to give you that because it's not their primary thing. Listen, you may be able to say, wow, what you want, I'm willing to give, and what I need, you're willing to give. But you find that human commonality. Now, I promised earlier that I was going to talk about why do haters hate? I'm going to answer that when we come back. Closed captioning provided by we're talking about hate crimes, and today we're focusing on hate speech and hate crimes against the Latino community. There are two things that have really jumped out. One is ignorance. I mean, it's just pure ignorance, and that's what you were just demonstrating so well. But the other thing, besides ignorance, is those people that hate, and I mean aggressively hate, have a common trait of being very insecure, having very low self-esteem, and needing to find someone that they can tell themselves they're better than. And the fact of the matter is, that doesn't help them at all. Shooting down somebody else's balloon does not elevate your position in this world at all. And if you couple that with ignorance, where they don't even understand anything about the people that they're biased and prejudiced against, then they're just victimizing people they don't know or they don't understand. So if you're a hater, if you're one of those keyboard bullies, or you're somebody that's out picking on a street vendor, or going in a restaurant and showing your ass by behaving that way, you need to really ask yourself, why am I so insecure? Why have I got such low self-esteem that I have to find somebody to pretend I'm superior to? That problem is yours, not theirs. Thank you guys for coming and talking about this. You didn't have to do that. And I want to thank my guests today, including Jason Tatenhove and Eden. Thank you for being here and talking about your advocacy. Cheryl, I'm glad you're my friend. And Elizabeth Jaros, thank you for the work you're doing and for coming and sharing it with us today. You can see more of Elizabeth's series, Behind the Glass, at behindtheglass.tv. I think you'll find it inspiring and something you can emulate in your own life. For more information about today's episode, log on to drphil.com. Don't forget to scan the flow code on the screen for exclusive behind-the-scenes content. You can follow me on all my social media platforms. Plus, it will link you to my podcast, Fill in the Blanks, as well as Robin's podcast, I've Got a Secret with Robin McGraw. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.